Hey everybody, we're here with another Savage Gentleman podcast and a very special guest. We have Mike the Cop.
Savage Gentleman.
Indeed. Now, is it Mike the Cop or is it Mike the Cop? Like are you Mike, comma the cop?
Mike the Cop.
Is the emphasis on the, like you are the cop?
I'd like to think I'm the cop.
You are the. I mean, in my mind, you are.
If you're not me, you're not a cop.
Yeah,
essentially.
Everyone else can suck it.
That's how it
Your
goes.
law enforcement is invalid. You're like Judge Dredd, dude. You are the law.
Essentially.
Basically.
Essentially.
Oh, nice.
You like that?
That was good. I'm going to see if I can maybe edit in some kind of Judge Dredd clip.
Yeah,
it's probably just
something.
Stallone screaming. It's like probably the only soundbite from that movie that even matters. I am the law. Man.
Was it on that set that he was like, you gotta cup the balls?
Probably?
Yeah.
I don't know.
In his trailer. Did you ever hear that story?
No.
Are you serious?
No.
Audio captured. I don't know how it got captured, but basically somebody on the set was, doing a favor for him in his trailer, and you hear him like, "No, you gotta cup the balls," like giving instructions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's next level.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I mean, but
I'm not sure if that's what we discuss on this show.
How many people could be like, man, where'd you learn to S to D? Sly Stallone taught me. Like, that's a huge,
Yeah.
That's like next level. Like, yeah, I learned how to.
It's bragging rights, all right.
It really is.
Yeah.
What was the? It probably. I mean, it's 2019. I guess it doesn't matter the gender.
I don't know. I don't really
person.
know any details further than that. I'm kind of ashamed that I know that much.
That's valuable information that is super relevant to everything that anyone needs to know.
Right, yeah, of course.
So, wow, that's a hell of a way to start off the show. We just either gained or lost all of our listeners.
I tend to be polarizing. So
one way or the other. So we have Mike the Cop here, and you guys may be familiar with him and his antics. He has some might say pretty strong following in the social media world, talking about obviously pro law enforcement and just other ramblings and musings about life and manliness in general. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah. I mean, if grappling is manly, then...
It depends on who is doing said grappling and how that is taking place. I mean, if it's in Sly Stallone's trailer, it may or may may be.
If you're sitting down and butt scooting and barrel
no, don't. No. Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, you know what? It depends on what you're going for, right? Because you can be successful in that.
Yeah,
there's plenty of dudes that have won many a tournament and are probably a hell of a lot better at grappling than both you and I.
Oh yeah, no, they would wrap me up.
Who have done that. But there's a sense of to me, honor, right? Where it's like,
right.
Look, you came here to fight. You came here to grapple. Let's actually do the damn thing. Stop trying to bend and circumvent. Well, but we do that, right? We circumvent the rules as much as we can get away with.
You want to win, right? So I get it, but it's funny because I'm not a huge I have no interest whatsoever in striking, really. I did a few boxing lessons last summer. I was horrific at it, by the way. Horrific. Now I did Korean martial arts all growing up from age 7 to whatever. So like a lot of people have, but
yeah.
So sort of that, I'm okay at that, but
you don't really get hit in that.
Not really.
Yeah.
So boxing is a whole new world. Boxing will show you just how terrible you are at boxing. So when it gave me a whole newfound respect when I watched it, though. So I would go back and watch boxing matches after I was doing these lessons, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's kind of like when people look at jiu-jitsu, and I'll watch 6 hours of jiu-jitsu on a Saturday night or something, and people my kids are this is so stupid. Well, except my daughter.
It's all the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this is so boring, and I'm are you kidding me? This is great. And I'm seeing things, and I used to feel the same way about boxing, right?
Yeah.
I got to watch it, be okay, guys, this is stupid. You're just tying each other up or whatever.
Just hit him. What are you doing? Yeah.
What's the problem? And then you start learning boxing, you're oh my gosh, there's a lot to this.
Essentially that's the way it is with anything, though, right? It's on the surface, anything can be pretty simple and simplistic, right? It's being a cop. It's I don't know, man, just push the radar gun and write people tickets is pretty easy, right?
What's the problem?
I don't understand why that's a hard job.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or it's all you got to do, you can't solve that crime, just look for the semen or the DNA or the blood sample and
just pull the fingerprint
CSI.
off that rock.
Yeah.
No problem.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
But as you dig deeper, everything thing is far more complex than it seems. And I think we often, don't give things the credit they're due. And I think I was talking to someone the other day. It seems that like we as men just assume that certain things, certain traits or characteristics are innate, right? Like the ability to fight.
Yeah.
Or the ability to shoot a gun or drive a car. It's like, what makes you think that with no prerequisite training or skill that you could just pick this up immediately because you were born as a male? Like, it doesn't work that way. But yet we have it in our mind for some reason. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why is it, Mike?
I wish I knew.
Answer all my questions.
I wish I knew. I know that some people seem to be better at those things, like innately. Some people seem to be, you stick them behind the wheel of a car and all of a sudden, like, they're kicking ass and
just Mario Andretti
know how to, do burnouts or whatever. They just seem to take to it really naturally. And, then you got other guys that are really good naturally grapplers or whatever else. And, you just have to, I guess, work on the weak spots. Yeah, or you could go the opposite route and only do the things that you're good at and just stick to that. Never touch anything else that may or may not that lies outside your comfort zone. That's another approach. What do you think about that? I think it's a good approach if we're talking about some things like business. Okay. Like, find what you're good at and really do really, really well at that. Okay. Or maybe hobby-wise, like, hey, this is something I'm really good at, so I'm really gonna go for it. But I think when we start talking about skills and character development, I think then we got to go broad. We got to recognize, like, man, I really struggle in this area of my character, and I need to figure out how to fix that. I need to work on this and develop that aspect of my character. Yeah. So I think, like, in a certain way, yeah, that's true. Like, focus on your strengths because you're going to be able to leverage that to accomplish a lot more than you would if you were trying to do everything. But on the other side of that, when you do leverage the strength, the time and energy that you save by doing it, you can reinvest into the weaker areas, maybe. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I think something that have gotten away from today is this notion of a well-rounded individual, a Renaissance man, if you will, where you are actually well-versed in a number of areas. And I would even submit that it's much harder to see where our character flaws are. I would put to anyone who may be floundering or having some kind of an issue to say, hey, just pick up something different, because that will then reveal where those flaws are. Like, you may not be able to introspectively look and say, hey, you know what, I'm really bad at this and this. Yeah. But by trying to explore new things and learn new skills and activities and endeavors, I think, at least for myself, it will become apparent that, like, oh, wow, I am super impatient, or whatever that flaw may be, but I may not realize that because I'm in my comfort zone and it's not going to reveal itself, if that makes sense. So I think, if you have the wherewithal, if you're that introspective and you can just realize, like, yeah, no, I am terrible at time management or whatever, good for you. But maybe it takes, some other activity. I think one of the most revealing for a lot of folks is, and I'm going to beat this probably dead horse even more, is some kind of a combat sport, something like BJJ or boxing or whatever. I think that reveals so much about oneself when you start to go down that path. Yeah. Yeah. I can't say that I really disagree with anything you said. That's like, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's probably even more important in our culture too, because I think as a culture, we've become pretty damn complacent. Oh yeah. As long as I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, like, people literally camp outside to get a phone, right? Like, and as long as they have their phone and they have their coffee drink in hand, then the rest doesn't really matter too much. It's just that comfort-seeking part of our culture, and a lot of people don't think about it or even really know that this is a real modern notion of comfort, living in relative comfort and not fearing that you would need to maybe kill the person that comes next. Mm-hmm. Is a very modern invention.
Oh, I mean, only within the last really, maybe we could say 100 years, because things were still pretty rough. I mean, back in the Great Depression, things, you probably weren't going to get murdered as much then, but like in the early 1900s, it was still pretty Wild West-y, where you really had to have skills to defend yourself at any moment, because you never know when something's going to happen. So, I mean, I'd say probably around maybe the Great Depression, we kind of, everyone was just trying not to die at that point, so they didn't have time to kill each other.
Yeah.
And there's been rough patches here and there, right? But yeah, this notion of like, hey, I can just walk around with general impunity and not a care in the world, because no harm is really going to come to me, is very, very modern. And I think going back to what you were mentioning before, this idea of complacency, I think we've now set the expectation so low for ourselves, for both ourselves personally and probably for our kids, as far as like what we want them to become or achieve, that it's like, hey, all you got to do is just check a couple boxes and go about your life and you're good. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, all I need to do is have an okay job, I can get married, have a house and a couple of kids, and I'm good. And it's like, maybe, I mean, for some people, maybe that's great, but I tend to believe that the folks that have followed that path, all of a sudden they wake up at some point and they look around, they're like, man, what is going on here? And you see that manifest in a lot of different ways, right? And people start to go off the rails because they're not fulfilling their full potential, right? Because they set that bar so low. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I think we look at people who are really successful, and they're people who have, even if their circumstances haven't dictated that they're going to be uncomfortable, that they've chosen to make themselves uncomfortable.
I think
chosen to put themselves in positions of uncomfort to overcome that, and that has forged their ability to succeed.
Yeah. Well,
what they choose.
I mean, if you look at the advances of mankind throughout history, right? They have always come at the expense of really difficult time periods, right? It was born out of necessity. When everything is comfy and cozy, we tend to get kind of lazy. I mean, that's actually like by design. Like, we're designed to do as little as possible, right? Because otherwise we just spin ourselves into the ground if we didn't. So, our body rewards us by taking every shortcut we can. I mean, it's a survival mechanism. But with advances of technology, we've kind of moved past that, and now we have to manufacture difficult things in order to get the positive response that we need, right, to make ourselves what we're supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, we were not designed to like sit in an office behind a desk and work for 6 or 10 hours or whatever else, and then come, spread the seed on the lawn and turn the sprinklers on and watch American Idol at night and go to bed. We just weren't designed for that.
No, that is not what this was put together for.
No, not at all. So like, and that world is just new. And I think that there'll have to come a time of corrective measure. Like, I think it'll be inevitable.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I don't think that the majority of people, because again, we have such an aversion to discomfort. No one is going to willingly, en masse put themselves in that situation. But like, again, throughout the course of history, there is some event that takes place where, oh shit, now we're in a bad way.
Yeah.
And now we have to step up and do the things. And that may happen tomorrow. It may be another 100 years. I mean, who's to say? But I mean, that if history has taught us anything, it's that nothing is constant, everything is changing, and these are cycles. So that kind of bleeds over a little bit into the ready man ethos of this idea of self-reliance and preparedness and being ready for anything that may come your way. And I think that's kind of the carryover with Savage Gentleman, is the idea that like, you might not need these skills on a day-to-day basis, but it would be good to have them. And the bonus part is pursuing these other avenues will make you a better person overall, outside of just that skill itself.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that is what I believe school should have taught us, is that, hey, you need to be constantly learning stuff, to make yourself better. Because there's just value, there's inherent value in constantly learning.
Our education system is all but designed to be the exact opposite of pushing kids into difficult circumstances to overcome them. And
especially nowadays. It's gotten, because I was in the school system. I was a teacher for a number of years, and I kind of started to see the writing on the wall. And I was just starting my pro fighting career as well, and I was like, well, I can do this, but I don't really like the direction it's going. Or, I only have a certain number of years that I can compete athletically. Might as well strike while the iron's hot. And obviously I took that path instead. But, nowadays, man, we have removed almost every obstacle in the kids' way in order to give them, quote, success.
Yeah, I don't think the intentions probably malicious.
No, I don't think so at all.
It's the whole thing of like, how come kids will act like morons now? It seems, I don't know. There's probably always some measure of a back in my day kind of.
Damn
thing,
it,
right?
kids!
But
get off my lawn.
But at the same time, it's like out of those circumstances of difficulty, parents or entire communities of people then say, we want to give our kids what we didn't have.
Yep.
And in doing that, with the intention being, kind-hearted or positive, because you want to produce who you are without all the difficulty.
Right.
And then I think we're going to look back and go like,
whoops,
we were wrong.
Yeah.
You can't produce the same kind of people without the same type of environment that causes you to have to overcome difficulty, and where it's not real, because we're not going to walk out of this building most likely and have somebody challenge us physically. That's a very low likelihood.
I hope they do. I really do.
That would be.
Wouldn't that be great?
So
the second you walked out the door,
we just walk outside and
Sylvester Stallone is standing there, and it's like,
hey, yo, who do you guys think you are?
Like, you gonna talk shit on Sly Stallone, huh?
Listen, man, I respect your film work, but I'm about to kick your ass hard.
I don't know, dude. He's pretty juiced up, man. You think he?
Yeah, I just.
You think he still has it? Yeah,
Nope.
I bet his knees are wrecked by now.
Some people are watching.
Wait a minute.
What?
Are these guys speaking another language?
What is it?
Yeah. Listen, go study up jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You'll understand.
If you're not going to face that naturally, then you have to create some type of artificial obstacles to overcome.
The hard part, though, is that's an arbitrary line to draw, especially in the concept of a parent, right? Is like, okay, I want to give my kid the best chance for success. You know what I mean? I want to give them every opportunity and a leg up from where I was. But then to, again, manufacture hardships, it's like, man, that's the hard part for me as a parent, is figuring out like when and where to apply that, so I'm not just being, an asshole and making things hard on my kid for no reason, but at the same time, I'm not just spoon feeding and handing everything, so that they understand that, hey, you're going to run into difficulties. You're going to not get your way all the time. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be sad. You're going to all these things. And that's the hard part. Now, expound that on a massive scale outside of just an individual household to full-on communities, to state legislator, to the entire United States, and that, I think that's where we are today. Is I think it's done with the best of intentions, but ultimately the pendulum will have to swing back the other direction.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to.
If it isn't already, I don't know. It's hard to say. We are getting quite a bit of pushback. The fact that we have a company that is titled Savage Gentleman, the fact that this exists, that we have to actually call out what we deem as the appropriate way to live as a man, to achieve your full potential, is a sign of the times that, like, okay, something went off the rails, right? Because there was, if you look back in history, there wasn't a call to action, there was no necessity, you just existed, and by virtue of what you needed to be, you lived out. You know what I mean? Right. It's like just out of necessity. Now that doesn't exist, so it's like, hey, back when this thing's happen, we should maybe do more of that. Like now there's a reason, and there's a ton of other entities that are similar. I was just on a podcast with Order of Man doing a very similar thing. They've got a similar mindset and great stuff over there. And then you've got a Facebook group as well that you were mentioning that kind of has the same kind of idea. What was that called again?
Return of the American Man.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I don't know how to. Find
you don't. It's I don't know. It's a thing.
Just go there.
Yeah, you just it's in your link because convenience, right?
Yeah.
You just click a button and you're there.
I certainly think that there's a craving for understanding, like recognizing, I guess I should say first, recognizing that there's an issue.
Yeah.
And then seeking out an answer. Like how do I overcome this? I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be, run over in life. I want to succeed. I want to thrive as a dude. So how do I do that?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that going around for sure.
There is. Well, and my thing is like, for what we're doing here, it's like, look, if you've got it all figured out, you're happy with where you're at, everything is fantastic. Far be it for me to tell you to change anything. You know what I mean? Hell, you give me some advice. Tell me what you're doing because I'd love to hear it, right? But if, you're looking around and you're like, man, I don't think things are exactly where I want them to be for whatever reason, then it's like, okay, cool, let's talk about that. And this is the whole idea of Savage Gentleman is, okay, let's explore what you're doing, right? And then let's see what you can add to that, whether that's learning new skills or trying new things. It's like, hey man, you're way over here on the Savage side. Let's talk about some gentlemanly stuff, man. Maybe you should take an art class, or you know what I mean? Like maybe just put down the sledgehammer in the club. Let's come over here and instead of destroying things, let's create things, or vice versa, right? It's like, hey man, let's leave the fixed speed bike and the vinyl records and the twirly mustache.
Stop carrying around a typewriter, man. It's like, we don't need that.
I'm not gonna lie, like I still think that's cool. I know it's entirely impractical, but there's a part. I think it's like the nostalgia of it.
Sure.
That it's like
I wouldn't mind writing on a typewriter, but carrying a.
Oh, I would never carry it around, but it's like man, it actually would be kind of cool to just to clickety clack on a typewriter, but have it go into a digital format because who has time for actual analog paper? I mean, gee whiz.
Yeah, no, I still like I'll take notes on my laptop and stuff, but I get out like a pen and paper.
Oh, dude, I have notebooks on notebooks.
I love like. There's something that sticks in my head better when I'm doing that.
Well, there's a physical. There's something. I mean, it's like scientifically proven that actually putting a pen to paper and jotting stuff down creates a stronger synapse.
Does it get
in the memory?
The further back we go, the more it sticks. And so, like, if we got like a stone,
if you tablet, yes,
if we chiseled, like, we would never forget it.
I mean, that's why it's written in stone.
Yeah, touche.
Yeah, see what I did there? Speaking of notebooks. We actually have.
I've never seen The Notebook, by the way.
What? No, not the movie. I was trying to do a shameless plug and you fucked it up, man.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's fine.
But I've never seen the movie.
Neither have I.
Oh, congratulations. No. That's right. That's what Savage Gentlemen do.
Yeah, Savage Gentlemen don't watch. Actually, I actually have nothing against rom-coms. That's just one in particular that I haven't seen.
Grosse Point Blank is one of my favorite rom-coms with a twist of all times.
All right, Notebooks, yeah.
Plug that notebook.
Yeah, so we have, if you guys aren't aware of this, we have these really cool notebook wallets. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 deal, right, where you can carry all your stuff. But I really like that because when that idea pops in my head, there's something about writing it down physically on a piece of paper, that helps me keep track of stuff. So for organization and, memorizing things or just ideas or even, daily tasks, I'll jot it down in the notebook. And it's like my credit card, my cash, a couple little odds and ends fit in there. And it's super comfortable. Jeff, can you throw me one so I can show it? Ha! Look at that catch. It's almost like I'm an athlete. So these are our notebook wallets.
I like it.
Yeah, they're pretty classy, made out of leather. And then you got your notebook here. We can personalize them, as you can see. This one is for Tyler White. Tyler White, please come to the front and collect your thing. So yeah, I don't know if I'll leave that in. I might cut that whole bit out. So getting back on topic after the shameless plug. One of the things that we were talking about earlier is this idea of you being in law enforcement for a number of years,
Yeah, 10 years.
For 10 years, obviously you've seen probably the best and worst of society. I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on where the Savage Gentleman kind of applies to what you see out there in the world, because you see stuff that most people don't. You encounter individuals that we hopefully rarely come across, and the lack of gentlemanliness probably is what I would assume you're encountering.
Sure.
On the bad side of things, and where you think that kind of fits into this.
Probably it's probably from two different perspectives, from the perspective of the community and then the perspective of an officer. It's probably like this weird sliding scale. From my perspective, I always start at, well, it's tough to say, right? It's circumstantial, but you want to start at as gentlemanly as possible, right? That's like the good afternoon, ma'am, good day, sir. Like everything is as clean and clear and professional as possible up until it's time that it's not anymore.
Yeah.
And then you've got to like take care of business, whatever that is. Sometimes that's verbally, right? Like I remember getting lambasted by my first training officer. I worked in a pretty difficult area when I first started, and we had this situation where there was like this assault, whatever was going on, and I showed up, and it's kind of like, all right, rookie, have at it, and I'm like, trying to be the all gentleman police academy, like, excuse me, sirs, could you sit down?
See, I was thinking you were going to come in like hard charging.
No, everybody just sitting to sit down, and then so my training officer comes in. There's like, everybody sit the fuck down right now. I see you move. I'm stepping on top of you. You're going to jail and blah blah.
Yeah.
And they like boom, complied. And there was like, it was almost like it wasn't disrespectful. And then they were like, they respected him. And he talked to me afterwards. He's like, listen, man, like you've got to learn the circumstances of when you have to be harder, verbally or physically. I'm not talking about just smacking people around. I'm just saying like when it's time to go.
But there's a presence, right? There's a physical presence.
You have to understand how to manipulate that presence along that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody who comes from a hard environment isn't going to respect you unless you demonstrate that you have what it takes to be inside that environment.
Yeah.
And they know that. They feel it. They sense it. You can always
There's
do
something
it. So
very primal to that.
Once I've got 4 or 5 years on, and now I've got rookies with me, and you can just, now you're watching like it's an out of body experience. You're just watching it happen. You're like, oh wow, like it's so obvious that this is a new guy, and this guy knows this is a new guy. Like how it all sort of plays in. So you try to be, a certain gentleman front, and then dial it back where you have to. I mean, sometimes you end up called a situation.
You probably have to start
just
off
hell on earth when you show up.
Yeah.
And you start the opposite. You start like just smashing heads and like sort out the rest later. And then you end up in a conversation with the guy in the back of your car, like, hey man, like what's going on with you? And then you have like these super calm I mean, it started out like the shit hit the fan at the first encounter with this guy, and then an hour later, you guys are like friends, and you're like, yeah, man, I get it, like,
that's crazy,
whatever. So it's this constant, moving along that spectrum, and I think it's just like, it's wisdom, right? Like, it's like there is no right or wrong, and that's where people like who watch police officers from a distance look at, well, he shouldn't be talking to him that way. Like, man, it's super hard to say yes or no, because there is no one way is always the way to do something, because you're constantly interacting with someone imperceptibly to a camera.
Right, that's the thing. You can't, unless you're in person, right, you can't feel that interaction. You can't feel the tone, you know what I mean? Because and there's no denying that there is like this inexplicable
unspoken
sense or feel, right? Where like you walk into a situation, you're like, you just know, right? And you can't put words to it, and you can't explain it, and you certainly can't define that by looking at a video. I mean, there are some people that can maybe like psychoanalyze and say, well, because of this posture and that and this, but there's still there is like a gut, deep feeling that hopefully you're in tune,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, it's going to guide you.
Once you've seen somebody run, like, there comes to be times when you're like, you haven't even stopped the car yet. You got the lights on. You're pulling them like, oh, that
he's gonna run.
The guy in the back right's gonna run. You just know it.
Yeah.
And you can't explain that. The dash cam's not going to show that.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where you're constantly in that spectrum. And I think that the public is too, whether they, and I think it's more on an unconscious level for them, how they're interacting with law enforcement. They're bringing their biases or they're bringing their experiences to the table, and they're somewhere along that.
Well, and it's so weird, man. Like I have never had a negative interaction with a police officer, like, and I was a knucklehead growing up in school, you know what I mean, and I went and I partied and we got busted, but everything was cool because you just didn't act like an idiot, you know what I mean? You did what you were told, and everything ended up being okay. But even to this day, if I'm doing literally nothing wrong, if there is a cop in my rearview mirror, like there's all of a sudden this like, oh no, you know what I mean? And it's weird. And I think, people take that to extremists, right? Where it's like, yeah, I'm terrified of the cops. And it's like, well, no, you just know that, hey, there is an authoritative figure that may or may not be monitoring you, and there could be repercussions to an action. And so, and I don't think that is actually the worst thing in the world, because we need to have some measure of, left and right limit. It's like, look, dude, you can't go, 150 down the interstate, swerve lane to lane. you know what I mean? It's like, right?
Sounds fun though.
I mean, yeah. It can be, or you kill yourself and everyone, and there's like a 40 car pileup because you were, you just wanted to go fast.
Yeah.
There's a time and place for that. But I think, and that's where it's tough, right? Because we take that like. Because like I said, man, my butthole puckers. I'm like, oh gosh, what if, you know what I mean?
Dude, when I get pulled over, it happens.
Yeah, and you are a cop.
It's like an evolutionary adaptation. To be like,
yeah.
Whoa, what'd I do? Like, that kind of thing.
Well, because that there could be, and it's not like, I know I'm not going to go to jail, but it's like, man, I really don't want to pay a fine for my taillight being out or whatever. And for the most part, again, every cop that I've dealt with has been pretty cool and pretty lenient, and I think that's due in part to just good communication.
I wonder, I never really pondered this question, but I wonder how much growing up in a Cops generation, like literally with the show Cops, constantly seeing action, right? There's not a lot of downtime, and so you have like this filter that things have come through to you, so you're always thinking like, man, these cops are all like,
they're just waiting to just
always running, they're always like, and you have this perception, and it's just sort of like built in that's the default understanding of how things are. I never really thought about how that's impacted the public perception of police officers or not.
I think that more so than anything, it is, what I would liken it to is like you're at your desk, you're doing what you're supposed to, but your boss comes and walks behind you, and all of a sudden you're like, right? Yeah. It's kind of the same because you don't know, there could be some repercussions for your actions, and they're unbeknownst to you. So there's that fear of the unknown, like what's going to happen? Are they going to tell me, hey, this is garbage, scrap it, start over from scratch? Or are they going to give me a pat on the back and say, hey, great job? It's the same thing. Is this cop just going to go on by me and go about his business? Or, am I going to get that one out of 100 guys that just having a shitty day and wants to, make someone else have a shitty day?
Yep.
Because that does happen.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what the percent. What would you say? What is 1 in 100 accurate of guys that?
I'd say when it comes to like abuse of some kind, 1 in 100 is fair.
Yeah. And that's pretty good odds. I mean, if you look in human,
it's better than the priesthood. I mean, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. Like statistics.
Shots fired.
I'm a Christian dude. So
no.
Just when you look at the broad spectrum,
if we're looking at statistics,
to be religious leaders or
yeah.
pastors, priests, like, there is a higher rate of abuse of position or power in that world than there is in the law enforcement world.
Yeah.
So that's neither here nor there, really, other than the fact to just say like it's a really small number.
Yeah.
Cops that actually have physically abuse their position of power, or
right,
use their position to manipulate or abuse that upon others in a way that's negative toward others. So I mean, it's rare.
But it's blown. It's just blown way out of proportion because for the 99 great, totally normal interactions,
right,
you hear about the one, right,
and then the other is saying like, yeah, I'm not condoning the one, like
no,
but it's a reality of the world. It's kind of like, yeah, my dentist, could be one of the dentists that wants to knock me out and unzip my pants, but I still go to the dentist because I need my teeth clean.
That would be more reason to go.
That's why I keep going back.
Yeah, obviously, I don't have any teeth left, and yet there I am.
There's every profession's going to have people.
Yeah, well, I mean that is just unfortunately the human condition, right?
Exactly.
It's like, well, first of all, none of us are perfect, and second of all, there is going to be a proportion that is even less so. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that are
I
going to
find
be
most people. Well, actually, it's universal. It's all people. I have yet to have a cop hater that was willing to actually have a dialogue, and I kind of have ways of asking now at this point, like, is your mind open to being changed? Because if it's not, I am literally not going to waste my breath.
Why would you?
Like somebody else did that the other day, like. It was a cop actually from Canada thought that my opinion on something was complete trash. Said if you believe this,
I mean, it probably was.
It was
probably
garbage. It is most of the time. Then you wouldn't know police work if it hit you in the face.
Wow.
So like he's messaging me and I'm like, okay, so what is it that you disagree with? So he lists 6 points. Point number 6 was, and if you don't see this, you're wrong. And I go, are you done? I was like, is it just 6 points or you got more? He's like, no, that's it for now. And I go, okay, so let me understand. You're saying that if I don't agree with you, I can't possibly be right if I don't agree with you.
But in all 5 things.
Right. And he's like, no, you're putting words in my mouth. I'm like, no, that's exactly what you said. You're not tackling what I said. I'm like, literally, it's number 6. Like, but I'm not going to waste my time. I'm like, Godspeed, man. Stay safe. We disagree. Carry on.
Yeah.
And but most of the cop haters, when they kind of come out of the woodworks, I literally say, like, if I show you statistically, if we can walk through this together and I show you where you're wrong, are you willing to admit it and change your mind? If you're not, I just wish you the best, man, because I'm not going to waste my time.
We'll agree to disagree. Yeah.
You do you, man.
Yeah.
Because it's a waste of time. But the people that do say, like, yeah, show it to me. Mm-hmm. They'll go, and that's kind of like what keeps me motivated after doing this for enough years. Is kind of
there is some hope that
I used to getting the messages where it's like, I used to hate cops. I used to have this perspective, and after paying attention to not just me but other cops on social media and stuff, like, I've really come to see, like, cops are people, that I was overreacting because I had a bad experience, but it's not everybody's experience, like all that stuff. And I think when people realize, like, as long as we don't project our negative experience, if we happen to be the exception to the rule, we just don't make that the norm. The exceptions aren't the norm. That's why they're called exceptions.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like,
Well, but confirmation bias is a hell of a thing.
Oh my gosh, we're a society that we
crave it. We crave
dissonance everywhere.
Yeah,
you pick your team, your side, and no matter what happens, we justify ourselves.
La 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 la.
Exactly.
Can't hear you. Yeah, it's
so bad.
It's tough, and especially when you make your living with online content. You know what I mean? And obviously you're touching on a lot of hot button topics. Mm-hmm. Inevitably you're going to ruffle some feathers, and you're going to, I mean, I've gone through and I've watched it's quite entertaining, actually. If you guys want to see some really interesting interactive, make sure you check out Mike the Cop on social media and just dive into the comment section.
It's where I thrive.
Yeah, no, he goes to battle there quite often, but there is something to be said for knowing when, what, man, that nothing I say matters. And I think more people
pick your battles.
Yeah. Well, I wish more people realize that in social media in general, where it's like, because I'll watch it, I'm like, hey, dude, he's not gonna. Not you, but I've looked at other people's thing, and it's like, you're not going to get through to that guy. I can tell you right now, by his stance, he basically told you nothing you say matters in not so many words, but we continue to fight on and fight on and fight on. It's like, dude, it's such a waste of the time. Like, you could do so many other things with that energy.
Yeah, and that's that's the relational sledgehammer, like, right, as a savage gentleman. Like, yeah, you can't just bash and bash and bash. Sometimes you got to, like, articulate a little bit better, and sometimes you got to walk away.
Yeah.
And be the bigger man.
Right.
And just say, okay.
Man, I tell you what, if we could channel the energy put into online battles.
It could probably power a city.
Oh my gosh! Like if we put that mental energy, like we would have cured windmills? Cancer, like 20 years ago. Like
that's a funny skit right there. You're how do you power the house? Like, oh, it's Facebook comments. What? Yeah, all the anger and hate. I learned how to channel it. I just power my entire house with it.
Brilliant.
We're off the grid.
Man, that's you talk about a $1 billion invention. Could you imagine how much shit posting would occur though if everyone was just trying to power their house by creating creating hate and anger on Facebook? Man,
it's not hard.
It would take trolling to the next level.
Yeah, I would love it.
Man,
it'd be fun to watch.
It would be. Oh gosh, I would have to delete my account. I couldn't. Like I've wasted. Well, so we got into that, and I made the conscious effort to pursue this because I felt that the long-term benefit would be worth the energy. But when we released the Toxic Masculinity cologne, it was right after the whole Gillette thing, and people were losing their minds.
Yeah.
And then we came out immediately right after with like, oh, you want to talk about toxic? Here's a cologne. And people just went crazy. And there was, thousands of comments. And same thing, people are just going back and forth. And every once in a while I'd come in and fan the flame a little bit.
Right.
Well, it wasn't so much to fan the flame. It was like, okay, hey, you guys made some good points. And there actually spawned some really good dialogue. Like some of the most vehement opposition to the idea of toxic masculinity. They're like, you know what? Actually, you guys have a pretty good understanding of this. We may disagree on terminology, but the overall goal of like, look, no one's saying that it's cool to, be misogynistic and abusive towards women and sexist, and no one's saying that that's a good thing. We're just looking at it in a different perspective and saying, what? Maybe you guys didn't portray that the best way you could have.
It's not all about beating dames.
Yeah.
And broads.
No, it's not. It's not. And so anyway, we were actually very civilly, in a lot of cases, able to come to some good agreement. And granted, it was probably far more time invested in that than should have been. But for me, I felt like it was important because so much of the internet is just people hammering the keyboard in all caps, screaming at each other. It's like, hey, can we actually have some civil discourse? I mean, we have this tool at our disposal. Maybe let's use it to meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I could see the points that they were making. It's like, yeah, you're not wrong here, but consider this. And then there'd just be back and forth. And in a perfect world, that's the way it would be. But but in truth, it is a lot more humorous to just insert a meme that illustrates, the point that you're trying to make and makes fun of that person in the same. I mean, that's the pinnacle right there. If you can prove your point and make fun of them, that's a huge win. That's a huge
Meme
interweb
game
win.
1000.
Yeah, next level memeing. Oh man, so you've got some stuff in the works. You got a lot of stuff going on, don't you?
I got too much going on, man.
Well, I'm glad you took the time to sit with us. I mean, man, I feel like we're keeping you.
No, heck no. I gotta go.
Yeah, now, you know what? Actually, now that you mention it, I'm out. Yeah, I've got a million other things that are more important.
I'm plagued with seeing potential in so many things. So that I want to do so many projects and things, and I just have to learn to pace myself, and all in time. It's kind of like, so that's why I like the mentality of say yes to everything, but then there has to be a caveat of like, I will say yes, but then I have to prioritize. Where does it fit? Like I was telling somebody the other day, like, and this is probably true of a lot of guys in their life. I would hazard to guess, because if I'm like that, somebody else is. So like, I just felt the last month or so like kind of stressed out. Like I feel like I'm not firing on all cylinders. Something just isn't right.
When's the last time you went to grappling? There you go. Problem solved.
That does help. This week is bad. I haven't been at all this week. It's been like nonstop. Like 2 times is a bad week for me.
Oh.
Usually it's like 5 is where my happy place, keeps me even keel. But if you've ever had like a ton of electronics plugged in, which I saw your electronic knowledge, so it might not apply to you, but
I have one thing plugged in at a time. That's it. That's all I can manage.
See these tangled cords, you're like, well, this isn't working, and you look under the desk and you're like, dang it, and you don't know what goes to what, and you kind of you have to shut it all down, unplug it all, and say, okay, I might be able to plug all this stuff into this power strip, but I have to do it in the right order so that it all fits, and then I gotta neatly put these cords together so like if I ever have a problem again, it's kind of like they're labeled, and I understand where everything's going, and that's just kind of like where my life's been.
You kind of had to do that
I just,
reset.
Put my head down, and I work, and I do social media, and I got a family, and I do this stuff, and then sometimes like all those problems go unnoticed for a while, and then you kind of like something is just off, and then when you try to diagnose it, like this whole thing's all jumbled up.
You just got a spaghetti bowl.
So you kind of need to take a break, right? Like just like step back and try to have an objective look at your life and like unplug everything. So that's kind of the mode I'm in. And so like this trip has been good because it's like, all right, I'm just gonna like get a couple days away from home to kind of like breathe, think while I'm traveling, and so I love it, man. It's been refreshing.
You bring up a great point where I think we need that reset, and it often comes in ways that we don't expect. I think a lot of us, like, what, I just need a vacation. But and sometimes that is the thing that you need, but for me, I found that traditional vacation ends up actually just compounding the stress because it's like, well, there's a financial burden, there's logistics and all these things, and sometimes you end up making things worse. It's not as enjoyable as it should be.
This is probably a whole huge topic because I've been finding like building. And this is so hard for me. I think because when you think about like my entire life sort of like flows through this thing right here, So it's hard, but finding natural rhythms of break, and there's a lot of you could get religious about it, you can get philosophical about it, but we need a break. We need rest, right? So not only like this, like a day off or something like that, but even built into the day, like these mini periods of stepping away from everything for even just moments or something like that. But having a time where like that's over, and that's tough about social media because when social media is your job and it's always there, it's like, it used to be like if you built cars on a line, okay, the whistle blows, we're done. You go home and you can't work.
And you're not even thinking about, cars because
Now I'm like, I could be sitting there at 9:30 and something pops up on TV and I'm sitting there with my family and it makes me laugh or it makes me think. I'm like,
I should do this.
I need to write that down. Or like, I got to go, this has had a lot of comments. I need to be on there. I need to be doing this. And it's tough. And I think that's probably something that a lot of guys could learn to adapt and
absolutely. Well, I mean, especially when you're looking at the entrepreneur, and a lot of people are pursuing that route. We're moving, and even if you have a full-time regular day job, I mean, most everyone has some kind of a side hustle and thing that they're working on. So now you've got this extraneous thing that is just occupying your brain and occupying your mind, and it's like, man, when do I turn off? Because I've caught myself where it's like I should be present with my wife and with my kids, but mentally I'm actually out here thinking about, hey, what's a better marketing strategy? What can we do here? What can we do that? Right? And we're doing ourselves a disservice. I think finding whatever that activity that completely divorces us from that, it just disassociates us from that thing. For me, there's 2 things that will do that. 3, I guess. So one would be on the mat, punching, kicking, choking, whatever, doing some kind of fight training. Huge. Tends to work really well. Conditioning, strength training, if I really get in deep. But there's something about suffering, right? Where it's like, what? I'm not actually worried about.
Usually, on the bottom.
If I'm in the suck, I'm thinking about how much my lungs are bleeding or how my legs are, fatiguing and that sort of thing. And as much as it sucks, I think it's important to get that respite. You know what I mean? And then the third one for me is going up in the hills, going up in the mountains, and doing something outdoors. Because again, your attention, especially when you're doing something that's a little bit, I mean, just, I don't know. For me, just taking a casual stroll doesn't really do it. But if there's some consequence where it's like, hey, I've got to be paying attention, because I'm in a pretty rugged country, I'm doing some climbing, some scrambling or whatever, that tends to help that mental reset, and for me, I find at least a couple times a month, if I don't do that, I start getting like kind of weird. Same thing with being on the mat. Like if I'm not, getting kicked in the face, enough, things get off. And I'm not saying that's what everyone needs to do, but you need to find whatever that is.
It's fascinating to think about. Like I guess some people find that in. But it's probably always physical activity.
Maybe I don't know. I mean,
do you think guys can? I don't know.
I think you could do it.
I have a hard time relating to be like, oh, I build model airplanes, right?
I think
like that is enough of a de-stressor. That it blows my like. I get that. I think it's cool, but like, do you feel like guys need something physical to really have that balance in their lives?
I mean, I think from like a holistic approach that if you're not putting any time or energy into that, you're going to run into a problem. But I also say that I'm sure there are plenty of guys that have never picked up a weight, never done anything physical, that have lived in that realm and never had an issue with it. I think it depends on who we're wired or how we're wired, and I think it kind of comes from that introspective of saying, back when I was a kid, I used to run around and climb trees and do all this stuff. And, I haven't done anything physical in 30 years. And I feel like shit, like what's wrong with my life? It's like, well, maybe you need to do something physical.
Yeah.
Go climb a tree. Well, maybe not climb a tree, but find something, maybe racquetball. I don't know. Maybe that's safer.
Squash.
Ooh, squash.
What's the difference?
I don't know. Someone.
Handball?
Ooh, now you're getting... No, you know what? Let's go... how about cricket?
Ooh.
It's
popular in some places.
Some places.
I wish rugby was more popular.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know.
like rugby.
I appreciate
watching
rugby.
it. I mean, I've never played rugby. Other than, I guess if you count backyard football where we actually tackle each other.
Basically rugby. Pretty much. The rugby guys are going to get so salty. They're like, you guys
I don't know that we scrummed. We lined up like... regular football.
Mostly we just tackled each other. Like
it was an excuse to hit people.
Yeah. It was just a reason to just lay your buddy out and not have them, tell on you basically.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun. But you can't do that now.
I guess, it's just like it's a different thing.
Games.
Like I really have a hard time wrapping my mind around a non-physical thing, I think just because it's just always been a part of my life. So I guess I just...
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm with you, but I think I would be... I don't know, very presumptuous to say that my experience is universal, right? Like I have to believe that there are plenty of dudes out there that can get their jollies off doing nothing but painting
go as far as you do with like the MMA style.
Yeah, so I guess there's a spectrum, right? So for however extreme you have for dudes that are like totally fine with getting their teeth knocked out on a regular basis, you have to assume that there's guys that are perfectly content on the other end to never even like break a sweat. But I think the truth, most of the population is going to be somewhere in between, somewhere, very few people are a full savage or full gentleman, to bring it full circle.
Yeah.
Again, shameless plug. They're probably some percent combination of savage or gentleman.
Yeah. Can you have a shameless plug on a show that
it's your own show
after the brand? I mean,
I don't know.
Can't be shameless. It's just
a plug. Yeah, it's not a shameless plug. It's just a plug.
Just a plug.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. You might not know this about me, but I'm totally making all of this up on the fly.
I love it.
This whole thing just kind of spawned out of like an idea, and it's like, I don't know anything about podcasting. I don't know anything about running a business. I don't know anything.
I'm finding that more and more when you get like into the minds of people who have really taken that risk, entrepreneur stuff, and have really stepped out. It's a very common theme that I'm learning. Like, oh, I don't have to have it all figured out. Like, there's no master plan. It's like you kind of just keep taking steps, and then eventually, like, okay, that one worked.
Yeah. Well,
and that's okay. Let's try to do more of that, and then you just keep on going.
Yeah.
and you just it's that tenacity. I think that is probably more important.
I think that's the only secret. Yeah, it's really easy to look at people, and not saying that I'm super successful, but saying that other people that are successful, it's very easy to look at them and say, man, that guy just has something, you know? Yeah. And granted, I'm sure there is some level of talent and skill, but I think the underlying factor is that tenacity, is that stick with itness, you know what I mean? Stick to itness, that they continue to go and go and go and refine and refine and refine until they get to the place where, oh, hey, I'm here. Yeah. But I've talked to guys that are, you know, just have been at the pinnacle level, and it was very revealing. They're like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm like, wait, what? But you're the guy. And they're like,
I came to you for this.
Yeah. And it's like, man, I don't know. I mean, I can tell you what I've learned, but it's like, I'm still learning and figuring this thing out.
Principles, right? Like, it all comes down to like, well, I've learned like, kind of like, as long as you sort of have this perspective, you know, like treat people with respect, you know, like I've just learned like to overcome most of these difficulties as I grew up businesses. As long as I was respectful to people, like I didn't burn bridges.
To work
like,
out.
Oh, okay, great. So this is a principle I can adopt.
Yeah.
I might not have to apply it right away, but if I can kind of hold on to that. So I think there's stuff that you can probably accelerate your learning a little bit, but there's kind of like the whole idea of being in comfort, again, to bring it back full circle. Like, there's only one way to get there. I was just talking about that with jiu-jitsu with a couple of guys who are, you know, black belts for years and all this stuff, and I'm just like, am I supposed to feel this way right now? I came home from training and I'm like, is this normal? You know, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, is it time for me to do a few privates to focus on this, that, or the other thing? They're like, man, you can do that, but like, really, you need to go through what you're going through right now. That's just part of it, you know?
Yep.
And that's one of those things where, oh, okay. You know.
Well, and that's something that I think we, as parents or as leaders in a community, like, we have to recognize that is part of the process. You can't remove all stress. You can't remove all discomfort. It's like, as much as I hate to see my daughter cry, I have to let her fall down and skin her knee.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yep.
I don't like it. You know, it doesn't bring me joy, but it's like, if I bubble wrap her and she never goes through that, man, what kind of individual is she going to become from that? And I think, you know, that's that wisdom where we have to step back and recognize. It's like, you know, as a coach, you know, as a black belt, to look at the student and say, hey man, it just takes time. Yep. You know, I mean, but it's not what we want to hear. We want that magic solution. It's like, no, just give me the secret. Just show me the move. I just need the one move. Show me the one move that I can beat everyone with.
Can you show me the move that can't be defeated at all?
Yeah,
can you do that?
That's all I need. I mean, just make that happen. You're a black belt. You know these things, right? Show me the dark arts. And it's like, man, it doesn't work that way.
Like behind the curtain, like the old video shops, like, yeah, come on back here.
All right. We got the stuff for you. Yeah, it's not that way, and I'm sure, you know, you probably had to have that same conversation with some of your rookies. It's like, man, how do we learn to decide this to act this way or that way?
When you get on the job and you're like, yeah, you got to go through this. Like, you can't fast track it.
Yeah,
you know, you can probably feel more comfortable knowing that someone else is telling you it's going to be okay. Like, that's helpful, but there's no way to shortchange the process.
I think the only comfort that people with experience can offer those without experience is to say, hey, look, it's going to suck. Expect it, know it, understand it, move past it. You know what I mean? I think that's really all we can do. It's like, as a coach or a teacher, like, I can't be there to solve all the problems for you. I can give you the knowledge that I have, but you've got to implement it. You've got to be the one, and there's going to be times where you make the right decision and times that you make the wrong one. And, you know, you've got to go from there. And I think, you know, if we can recognize that in ourselves, where we look around and we're like, man, this really sucks. Because I've been there. I mean, gosh, it is awful when you just have one of those days at the gym where everyone is kicking your ass and you're like, what is going on?
That was like how I felt. I'm like, am I supposed to?
Should I just quit now?
Day?
Should I quit now? Because
I've been doing this for years. Why do I feel like it's my first day? What the heck? You know,
yeah.
And there's probably a lot of factors to that, you know.
Oh, there's so many factors. It's like, well, how much did you sleep? What did you eat?
It's like so many factors.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that hardship is part of the process, that uncomfortableness. And in fact, I would say that if you are not uncomfortable in what you're doing, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in business, if you're not doing things that make you uncomfortable, you're probably not going to be long-term successful. If you're training, if you never get tapped in training, no one ever submits you, you're doing something wrong. You're not training at the right place.
Probably a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. And so, you know, we've created a society where failure is a 4-letter word, you know? And it's like, you have to fail. You have to let people go, and that have to let people fail. And that's, again, part of the problem with our school system is like, no one can fail. And I understand why, because you lose funding and all this thing. So it's like, oh, we got to make sure that, you know, we make everybody pass. And it's like, no, dude, you can't. If you don't do the work, you don't get the reward, you know? And that's the whole idea of participation trophies and all that stuff, which may be a podcast in of itself. You know what I mean? But it's like, no, let people fail. Like, they need to, because that's how we learn. That's how we grow. But we hate it. We don't want to do it. Again, I mean, I really shy away from things that I suck at.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not, you know, if I have to design my own workout, it's not going to have the things that I'm terrible at.
Right.
It's going to have the things that I'm good at. You know, that's why I have to go to someone and make them make a workout for me to work on the things. And that's why we need other people in our lives to help facilitate the things we don't want to do.
Yeah. And you got to have people with guts to tell you what you suck at.
Be like, hey, by the way,
you really need to work on this, you know? And
we don't want to hear it, but we need to. We have to. And that's been, you know, something that I've really enjoyed about this idea of Savage Gentlemen. And I'm gonna plug, kind of segue this into what we've been doing with the League of Savage Gentlemen. And for those of you who don't know, we've got a closed Facebook group called the League of Savage Gentlemen, where the idea being, we've got all these, you know, very diverse men in a lot of different areas to kind of come together and learn from each other. And, you know, being within that group, seeing guys doing things and having guys have the honesty to say, hey man, you're fucked up here. Like, oh right, I am. I would have never noticed that. And then it's like, okay, but not in an abrasive way, not in a condescending way, just like, hey, this is a problem, whether you realize it or not. Here are some ways you can fix that, you know. And I think that's how we grow as men. That's how we have evolved to the place where we are, is we've had this, you know, core group of individuals. We've surrounded ourselves with, you know, these tribe elders, if you will, to learn from and grow from, because no one person has it all.
Yeah.
You know, it needs to be a collective.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's why I appreciate, you know, guys
Otherwise,
like yourself.
You just become sort of like a carbon copy of somebody instead of, you know, a well-rounded individual.
Right. Right. And so, you know, for anyone who's listening, I would invite you to come check out the League. We've got 2 questions.
What are the questions?
The only barrier of interest.
Can you tell me, or do you have to kill
me? No.
No.
It's pretty simple. They're pretty straightforward, right? The only barrier to entry is to answer the questions, and it says, "What would you like to gain from the League, and what can you contribute?" That's it. Simple. And I would ask. And our moderators have actually been doing a really good job of cycling through this and sifting through, because there's a lot. I mean, we get a ton of people, which is exciting. It's more than I can manage, so I've enlisted the help of a few people. But it's like, if you just give like a 1-word answer, you're probably not going to get through, because it's like, look, if you can't be bothered to take the time, the chances of you actually either
it's
contributing,
a better experience for everybody if somebody wants to be there,
right? Well, and are willing to engage and, you know, actually contribute in some way, and you're also going to be more likely to actually receive, you know, feedback and information. So those are the only 2 questions. And then we get in there and we discuss all kinds of things, a lot of the topics that we talked about today. And we're continuing to grow and expand, and I just wanted to invite people to go check that out. We may or may not get even a few little cameos from Mike the Cop if you enjoyed listening to his sultry voice. In a world, we may be fortunate enough to be seeing more of him. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know if we have enough. Yeah, time will tell. Stay tuned. So, for people who do want to follow you, if they're not already, because most of them probably are. I mean, most everybody's.
I don't know about that.
You've got a lot of followers.
They're out there.
You've got quite a few.
I think half of them just follow me to hate me.
Hey,
No,
I don't care what they call me as
all
long as
press
they
is
call
good
me.
press or
That's right.
whatever,
That's
yeah.
right. So people can find you at Mike the Cop.
Yeah, MikeTheCop.tv is my website, which
Okay.
is a little bit of needing an overhaul right now. But essentially, that's the hub. If you go there, you'll find me.
Find everything else.
If you look up Mike the Cop, there is a crooked New York cop that there's a Netflix documentary about, Mike the Cop. And
It's
that's
not you?
It's not me.
Are you sure?
It's not me.
Okay. It wasn't
That's
me.
all I can say.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Anything else you want to kick out to the folks that they might find interesting or?
I find this whole topic of Savage Gentlemen super fascinating and motivating because I truly think this is going to, and maybe you don't even agree with me when I say this, I think so goes the man, so goes the culture. That's my belief, and I think that's at a broad level, and I think it's at a level of the family, and I think it's of the level of other pockets of community. I think so goes the man, so goes the culture. So that is not a statement that is like men are superior.
Right.
It's kind of like, I'm actually really bad about cars. I know nothing about cars. If it doesn't start, I'm screwed. But I can imagine there's something in a car that's like, if so goes that, so goes the whole
right.
car,
Well, it's
right?
the canary in the coal mine, right?
Yeah.
That is kind of the indicator light.
Yeah.
Right. And again, not elevating that necessarily, saying it's
It
the most.
doesn't make it more. Because there's other pieces that are also necessary. I'm just saying.
Right.
There's something about where that guy is
If your
going.
it's the alternator. If your alternator goes, eventually the car is gonna.
Yeah, and I would
crap out.
imagine if there was you could flip that, and in some sense there's a perspective you can say so goes the female, so goes the culture. If for a certain thing, that is to say,
Well, that's which came first, the chicken or the egg.
yeah, they both are necessary. So I think it's good for us to sort of like put pressure on ourselves as men to be the right kind of men and say, hey, we need to win our culture,
Yeah.
our families, and our communities. We have to take responsibility for who we are as dudes.
That's the key.
Then we don't blame it on anybody else. We don't expect it from anybody else. We go do it.
Yeah, I think the point being is we can't control, as myself, I can't control what anyone else does, but I, as a man, can control the way I behave. And so that's why we put this call to action to men, presuming. But I mean, if you're a woman, control the way you're acting.
Right, yeah. If you're a woman,
you just speak to what we know.
You're not a man. It's just fine.
Yeah.
It's just you got a different set of things that you're thinking about in terms of what is it to embrace true femininity and live that out in a way that sets the example for the culture.
Right.
So, I mean, there's so many nuances, but
yeah, well,
you can't solve it all in one podcast.
You can't solve it all in one podcast, and I don't want to get mired down with like PC stuff. It's like, look, if we offended you, then fucking I just
said,
don't
like,
listen.
people can
Like, I
hate
don't
me
care.
all you want.
Yeah,
I don't care.
It's like, look, I'm not going to tiptoe around it, but it's like for men, there are a lot of things that we can and should be doing, and for here at Savage Gentlemen, like what we're trying to do is just explore that and offer up, what little advice or knowledge that we have ourselves, and when we don't know the answers, we bring in other, hopefully more interesting, some might say better looking individuals.
Well, I'll get there.
Oh.
How long did it take you to get that beard? Because I've
had it
really
for
starting.
So
I'm kind of like screwed because I have to shave regularly.
Oh,
when
yeah, you got
when
no
I go
chance.
back to work, and I have to shave.
Yeah.
So it's like it's constantly. But
yeah.
if I could
This
find a way to keep
this
going.
length is about a year's length, but I constantly trim it back.
Yeah.
Because really, this is about as long as I can have it without it completely getting destroyed when I'm grappling. Like this is actually a little bit too long. I was rolling the other day, and my buddy went for a gi choke, and he probably pulled out like a small dog's worth of hair. And I was like, ooh, I might need to trim it back a couple inches. So normally I'll let it go, trim it back, let it go, trim it. I mean, I've had this beard like unshaven for probably 3 or 4 years now, but this isn't 3 to 4 years of growth, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
we're getting really deep in the whole beard psychology thing, but it's it's an art form. It's a thing
is.
onto itself. So, Mike, I really appreciate you coming here. Thank you everyone for listening. Check us out. We're ramping this up. hopefully we can do more and more often. And hopefully, Mike, we can have you back next time you're in town.
I love it.
Awesome.